Professor Desmond, if you'd begin. Thank you.
Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you this morning. My name is Matthew Desmond. I'm a professor of sociology at Princeton University, where I direct the Eviction Lab, which is a research group dedicated to understanding the causes and consequences of housing instability. I come before you today gravely concerned about millions of American families brutalized by our country's painful and utterly predictable rental housing crisis. Since 1985, rent prices have exceeded income gains by 325%. Most poor renting families today spend at least half of their income on housing costs, with 1 in 4 spending over 70% of their income on shelter costs alone. Last year, rents increased faster than they ever have on record. Nationwide, median asking rent increased by 17% in a single year, but some cities saw rent increases double that. Since last March, rents have risen 30% in Orlando, 29% in Cincinnati, 22% in Dallas. This is the inflation crisis on steroids. When the price of gas goes up, we can adjust, carpooling to work. When the price of food goes up, we can adjust, eating out less. But when the cost of housing shoots up, what can families do? They often are already living in the cheapest apartments available. They can't double up with relatives because of local occupancy laws. They can't move if they want to keep their jobs and family ties and their schools, so all they can do is cut back on other necessities like healthcare and educational enrichments and food. As a direct result of the housing crisis, the United States has a much higher eviction rate than other industrialized democracies. The number of eviction filings has increased by 21% since 2000, rising to 3.6 million cases filed in an average year. Eviction is incredibly harmful to families and communities. It leads to job loss and homelessness, to depression and suicide. Babies born to mothers who experience an eviction while pregnant are significantly more likely to have adverse birth outcomes, which have been shown to have lifelong and even multi-generational effects. The evidence is in, and the evidence is clear. Eviction is not just a condition of poverty, it is a cause of poverty. Why have rents risen so aggressively? One possibility is that property owners' expenses have gone up, and to maintain a steady income, owners have to pass on rising housing costs to tenants in the form of higher rents. But this is not what the data show to be happening. Rather, in recent years, owners of multifamily properties have seen their rental revenues increase at a faster rate than their expenses. This has been especially true for properties located in low-income neighborhoods. The owners of these properties saw their rental revenues increase by 47% between 2012 and 2018. Their expenses during that time only increased by 14%. Both the private housing market and the federal government have failed to provide American families with enough affordable housing. As a result, property owners have seized the opportunity to increase rents knowing they have a captive tenant base. We need to increase the supply of affordable housing, but families need relief now, not 10 years from now when the doors open, but today. Congress could provide much needed relief by deepening investments in housing vouchers. I urge this committee to pass the Eviction Crisis Act and the Family Stability Opportunity Vouchers Act, two bipartisan sponsored bills that would help stem the bleeding. And you can extend the emergency rental assistance, which did so much to prevent an eviction spike during the pandemic. When we boost incomes for working families through government programs or economic growth, but don't address rents, income gains are often recouped by the housing market. Studies have shown that when states raise minimum wages, landlords respond by raising the rent. The implication is that investing in affordable housing isn't only necessary to stabilize families and communities, it's also essential because the success of all other economic mobility efforts depend on it. Now is not the time for inaction, for indecisiveness, or for the same old tired debates about spending. We could pay for deeper investments in housing in dozens of ways. Simply collecting unpaid federal income tax from the top 1% of households would bring in an estimated $175 billion a year. What we can no longer do is look renting families in the face, families now living in cars and garages and attics and storage sheds in the richest country on the planet, and tell those families, you know, we'd love to help you, but we just can't afford it, because that is a lie.